Hi guys, today I'm going to show you how to make the Ariana Corset. This is a crossover halter top that is one of my favorites. It's super structured, and yes, it was worn by Miss Ariana Madix herself for Love Island. This was custom made for Ariana, and you guys know I love sewing and putting up my sewing patterns. Now I'm going to show you guys how you can make this exact same top. If you guys have questions about the skirt, let me know and I can answer those. But this is the Ariana sewing pattern. You can see it comes with detailed instructions. The link is at my bio for you guys to download and purchase this pattern. It comes in sizes extra small through 3XL. Has an internal waist shaping tape. That's what I'm pointing to right there. So it really holds you in and snatches you. This pattern will be on my Etsy and my website. I can't wait for you guys to make this. It is truly just a one-of-a-kind pattern and I'm obsessed with it. But go ahead and cut out all your pieces if you have your pattern already downloaded and meet me back here and we'll start the tutorial. So I have all of my pattern pieces cut out here. These are all of my bodice pieces that you can see. We'll mess with the top towards the end, but I have all of my bodice pieces and we are going to interface each one of these. We're going to do this by ironing on our interfacing to the wrong side of our main fabric. So this is all my main fabric. I am just ironing on to each individual piece and we're doing that to the wrong side of the fabric. This is going to help give our top structure. We actually don't want this to stretch. We want it to stay pretty firm so it really holds you in. So that's why we're adding this interfacing to all of our fabric pieces on the bodice. Once that's done, you can see I have all of my pieces. We are going to do this side by side. So I'm going to take one side away and we'll end up repeating everything we do for one side to the other side. But starting with just one side, we're going to start at the back end and then work our way forward. So I'm going to take my center back and my side back and I'm going to place those right sides facing. Once I've got those right sides facing, I'm going to pin into place. Make sure you align those notches and you're pinning from top to bottom. And then once I have that done, I'm going to sew it down. Now this does include 0.5 inch seam allowance. So make sure when you sew this, you're using that 0.5 inch seam allowance, but we're going to sew our center back to our side back. And once that's sewn, it should look like this. Now we're going to continue on doing the same thing, but this time with our side back to our side front two. So I'm going to take those and place them right sides facing, and I'm going to pin all along the seams, making sure you align your notches. And then once I have that all pinned, I'll take it over to my sewing machine and we'll sew those together. Once that's sewn, it's going to look like this. Now we're going to grab our side front one and we're going to place our side front two right sides facing along the edge and pin those into place. Now I am going to warn you guys, a lot of these pieces look similar, and because we have two separate sides, it's really easy to mix them up or get them upside down. Make sure you have these labeled if you need to and put the arrows in the directions, or just write SF1, SF2, so you're not confusing those. I actually did this once the first time I made this and I had to seam rip and do it again. So don't make that mistake. Make sure you have your pieces labeled and you're not getting them mixed up. But as you can see, I just did my side front two and my side front one. And now I'm going to finish up this side of the corset with my center front. You can see here, the center front is similar. They look kind of the same on both sides, but make sure you have that going in the right direction. And once you do, place your side front one onto your center front with right sides facing, pin into place, make sure you align those notches. And once you do, we are going to sew that down, and this will complete one side of the corset. You can see here I've got one side of my corset done. I'm going to flip this to the opposite side, the inside, and we are going to press all of our seams to create our channels that will eventually be where we place our boning into. So to do this, I am going to press all of the seams towards the center back. So make sure you recognize which side is the center back. We're going to press our seam allowance towards the center back. And then same when we do our opposite side, it'll be towards the center back. Once you have that all pressed, we are going to sew down the seam allowances to create our channel. So you can see I'm just sewing down that seam allowance. Again, it's going towards the center back. I feel like I've repeated that too much now, but I want to make sure you guys have it going in the right direction. Once I've done that, I'm going to show you what it looks like when you have your channel done. So it should look like this on the inside, and then here is what the outside looks like. Now we're just going to repeat these steps for the opposite side. So I'm going to grab all of my pieces and do it the exact same way. I like to start from back to front. Once I have everything sewn together, I'll press down that seam allowance and create my channels for the boning. And once you've completed that, it should look like this. So we should have 2 of our corsets right here that will eventually equal 1, but here are my 2 pieces. And once you've done that twice, you will actually repeat it 2 more times for your lining pieces. You won't do anything different. You'll do the exact same steps. So you'll actually have 4 total pieces. So I have 2 lining and 2 of my main fabric that will eventually become 1 corset. But repeat these steps for your other side and for your 2 lining pieces. Once your lining is done, you can actually set that aside. We're going to come back to that later, but I'm going to enter in my internal waist shaping tape. So to do this, I'm going to grab my ribbon. Make sure you have a thick ribbon. It shouldn't have any stretch. We are going to align our ribbon with our notches that we have marked from our pattern. So that is our waistline right there. What we're going to do is we're going to make sure we do this super tight. Make sure there is no ease or extra pull on that ribbon. And we're going to start pinning this along where it aligns to those notches. So I like to pin this not where my seams are, because that's where we're going to sew. And once I have this all pinned, we're actually going to sew this from the outside, and I'll show you what I mean by that in a second. But we're going to stitch in the ditch, which is why when I pin this, I don't like to pin by my seams. I kind of like to pin in the middle. I also leave a little bit extra off on the ends, and we'll cut that off towards the end. But you can see I have my ribbon all the way pinned along one side of my corset. And once that's done, I'm just going to cut off the excess, and we'll take that over to my sewing machine. And again, I'm going to sew on this right side of my fabric, and we're going to stitch in the ditch. So I do this all in one go, but what I do is I'll find where my seam is. I'll put my presser foot down. I like to put my needle down slowly at first, and then I'm going to sew a little over what I think the length of the ribbon is, which is 1 inch. And I'm just going to sew in the ditch, so that way we don't have any more visible stitching lines on the outside than we need. So you won't see any more visible stitching lines. We're sewing over a seam that we've already sewn over. And again, what I mean by I do this all at once is I just keep going. I don't cut my thread. I just keep moving on to seam after seam after seam. And it's going to look like this on the inside before you clip your threads. And then on the outside, you can see we don't have any more visible sewing lines. We're just sewing in the seams that we've already sewn. We're going to repeat that for both sides. And then once you do, you can cut off that excess that we left on the edge. Now we're going to put our bodice pieces aside for a minute, and we are going to grab our bust top pieces, or you can just refer to it as your top piece. You can see I have one of them here, and what we're going to do is we are going to fold in our dart. We're going to do this with right sides facing, and we're going to pin into place. Once I have it pinned, we are going to sew that down. You can see this has a lot extra on the strap. That's only because we're going to cut off that excess, because everyone's a little bit different on how tight or loose they want it. So there is some extra at the top, but for now, don't worry about that. We are just going to sew down our dart by pinning it in place and then taking it over to our sewing machine and sewing a straight line down. Make sure when you're sewing your darts, you have a little back stitch to start. This is just going to keep it secure, and then finish off that dart by just sewing all the way down. And now we're just going to give our dart a nice press so that everything is nice and flat. Now we're going to repeat these steps for the remaining 3 pieces of your bust top, of your top pieces. And once you do, you're going to have a total of 4. You should have 2 pairs. So make sure you know which side is right and which side is left. They are labeled on front and back on the pattern. So make sure you know what's what. But once you do, we are going to take 2 of the corresponding pairs, so 1 pair, and we're going to place them right sides facing, and we're going to pin only along the sides. So you can leave the bottom open and also the top open, but we're going to pin all along those sides. And once we have that pinned into place, we are just going to sew down. I didn't film the sewing part of this, but it is the same as all of the other ones with a 0.5 inch seam allowance. And once you've done that, it should look like this. And now I'm just going to flip this right sides out. I like to use a little loop turner to get the rest of the top out, the very top edge of the top. You can also use a safety pin or whatever you need to just kind of poke it out of the top. But once you do, it should look like this, and we are going to give this a nice press so that it is flat. And we're gonna repeat this for your remaining 2 top pieces, your last pair. So then when you're done, you should have 2 top pieces that look just like this. Make sure you recognize which side is the front and which is the back. So the front is a little bit smaller than the back, and the back goes up a little bit higher. So make sure you recognize what's the front, what's the back, because we are going to grab the corresponding bodice piece. So again, front is a little bit smaller, back is a little bit wider, and we're gonna take this and we're gonna take it and put it right sides facing, going down towards the bottom of the corset bodice. Now there is a notch on your pattern to mark this up, but your seam of your top bodice should match the corset bodice. And we're also going to start the top 0.5 inches from the end of your center front. And again, that is where there's a little notch on your actual pattern piece for where to start it. But everything should align here. So again, align the front edge of the top to that notch, and then your corset seam should match the top bust pattern seam. And we'll continue pinning that all the way along. Once you have that pinned into place, baste stitch this down. We're just doing a base stitch, so just base stitch that down into place. Now that that top is done, we are going to grab our lining piece. Now make sure you have the right corresponding lining piece and it's going in the right direction. Double check this. I actually did this wrong and I have made this top before. So make sure you have the right one. I think it can be a little bit more confusing because we're technically working with 4 different pieces and making them one with our lining. So make sure you don't have the wrong side of the lining. But once you have the right side of the lining, you will take it and you will place it right sides facing onto your main fabric side of that corset bodice. When you do this, that top that we have just base stitched it in should be sandwiched in between, and it should still be going down in the direction towards the bottom of the corset. Now when I pin this, I'm gonna pin both sides and the top edge. When I do the top edge, like you can see I'm doing right now, I like to make sure all of my seams align. So my lining seams and my main fabric seams are aligning. And I like to do those first and then fill in a little bit later. And then once I've gotten my top done, I will go down both sides, the center front side and the back side, and pin those down into place. Once everything's pinned and we just have that bottom piece open, you can see I have both sides and then the top edge. I'm gonna go ahead and sew these down. I like to sew this down all in one go. So sorry this gets a little blurry here, but you can see I'm doing the top edge right now. And then I'm going to keep my needle in and I'll put my presser foot up. This does get unblurry in a second. And then I'm just going to turn my corset as I do that edge. So needle down, presser foot up, turn my corset, and then I'm going to go down the other side. And I'll do that for both sides and the top edge, again, just leaving the bottom open. Once that's done, I'm just gonna trim off some of that seam allowance. I'm also gonna clip my edges so my corners are a little bit sharper. And then I'm just gonna take this and I'm gonna flip it right sides out. So you should be able to pull your top out so it looks like this, and then your corset is perfectly lined for one side. And I'm just gonna give this a nice press so that everything is nice and flat and crisp. You can do an optional top stitch along that top edge if you wish. I don't feel like you need to, but if you feel like you want a top stitch, you are more than welcome to, but make sure you give this a nice press. And now I'm going to mark our last boning channel. So we're gonna start placing in all of our boning, but first we need boning up against the grommets. This helps when you're really pulling a corset. It's not gonna pull on the edges of the fabric, and instead it's gonna pull on that boning, so everything stays nice and stiff. So what I'm gonna do, and this is also marked on your pattern, is just take my ruler. It's 0.5 inches from the center back and the center front, and I'm gonna mark with chalk a straight line down. Once I have those marked, I'm gonna take this over to my sewing machine and I'm just going to sew along that straight line to create those last couple channels. So we'll do this for both sides, so we'll have 4 total, 2 on each, the center front and the center back. Now that all our channels are complete, I'm gonna start cutting my boning. So I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna place it up on the top edge going towards the bust top. And I'm gonna leave about 3/4 of an inch from the bottom. And I'm gonna cut this to size. And I'm gonna cut 2 because again, we're gonna do the other one and repeat everything once we're done with this piece. And I'm gonna do that for every single boning channel. You should have 6 boning channels per side. So 12 total. So you're gonna cut 12 total boning pieces, but for each side you are going to cut 6. And once you've cut all your pieces to size, I like to take either tape, or if you're using steel cage boning, you can also cap them, or you can use a lighter and burn the edges, and this just kind of melts it a little bit. Once you do that, it just helps from your sitting or moving around, it helps your boning pieces not poke out from the fabric and poke you in the side. Just a little extra help that helps your corset just wear a little bit better and last longer. But once I have those edges taped, I'll go ahead and I'll insert that into its correct boning channel, and I'll do that for all 6 of my boning pieces for this side. Now that our boning's placed, we are just going to finish up this side of our corset with our bias tape finish at the bottom. So to start, I'm just going to do a base stitch and base stitch my lining to my main fabric. I like to make sure when I'm doing this, I pin along all of the seams and make sure that the lining seams and the main fabric seams are in the same place. But I'll go through and just pin those, and once I've done that, I'm just going to base stitch this into place. And once that lining is connected to the main fabric with that base stitch, we are going to grab our bias tape. We're kind of coming up on the end. I always love doing the bias tape because it's one of the last steps. But I'm going to take the right side of my bias tape and put it on the lining part of my corset and align those bottom edges. And I like to take the ends and sandwich the bias tape along the ends, so that way right sides are touching from the corset. And I'll do this for both sides. And we're going to pin all the way along the bottom edge of your corset bodice. And again, once we get to that edge, we are just going to wrap the bias tape around the corset bodice so that it is sandwiching it with right sides facing, pin that into place. And then once we have that all pinned, we will sew this down. Once everything is sewn, we are going to flip our bias tape to the right side. So I'm going to take this, flip this all the way around. Those edges should flip in onto each other. And then we're just going to fold this once more over our raw edges so that all of our raw edges are concealed. You can see we'll do the edges right here, and there should be no raw edges either on your bodice or on the bias tape because those are sandwiched in between. And I'm just going to pin all of this into place. I like to use a lot of pins when I do this. I think bias tape is one of those things. If you take your time, it looks really nice. If you try to do it fast, it always ends up making the whole garment look messy, even if you took your time on the rest of it. So I like to use a lot of pins when I do my bias tape, and then I'm going to sew this down once I have everything pinned into place. Once that's done, you can see I have no raw edges on the outside or the inside. Your top should look like this. And now we're actually just going to do the exact same steps for your remaining pieces. So we're going to add our lining, place our boning in, all of the above. So go back, follow the exact same steps in the instructions till you have 2 pieces just like this. I'm just going to mark my grommets. This is marked on your pattern piece. I am using a 1/4 inch grommet, and I am placing them 1 inch apart, starting a 1/2 inch down and a 1/2 inch from the bottom. There will be 9 total on the front and 9 on the back, and then same for the other side. So you're going to have 36 total grommets, which is a lot of grommets. Trust me when I feel I get exhausted from putting grommets in too. They're hard on the hands. But you can always change the grommet size. If you want to use bigger grommets, smaller grommets, if you want to do a different spacing, you are more than welcome to. But you're going to take a chalk or a heat pen and you're just going to mark where all your grommets go. Once you have those marked, you can either use a handheld or you can use a hammer or a grommet press. And we're just going to set all of our grommets. Again, you have quite a few, so it does take a bit, but we're going to press all of our grommets for both sides of our corset. So again, you should have 36 total. Once that's done, go ahead and lace up your back. So this is my back piece right here. I'm gonna lace up my front actually when it's on me, normally when I try it on, but I'm gonna go ahead and lace it up for the sake of this video. But we're actually gonna try our top on before we do our top straps. That's on purpose because everyone is a little bit different with how tight they want it or how secure they want to feel. So those top parts are a little bit longer on purpose. It's also helpful to leave those front strings a little bit longer so it can be easier to get in and out of, so you're not completely redoing it the whole time, you're just tightening it. I like to leave the back as is. So find how you like it on the back and the tightness, and then fix the tightness and really fasten it when I put it on the front. You can also tie a knot and leave this and kind of push the knot towards the side so that it stays, or you can tie a bow. You can also do this the opposite way and have your bow be at the bottom. But once you've got your lacing done, try on your corset and mark where you feel comfortable with the edge. Also, make sure you remember, like here, I have my right over my left. So I know when I put this on, I put the right over the left, put it over my head, and then I tie the front corset. But make sure you remember that. Mark where you like the edges to be and place those right sides facing to one another. That can get a little confusing, so make sure you have a good visual of this is right sides facing, and this will be at the back of my neck. So once you have that pinned, we're going to sew that down into place. Also, just a note, if you feel like it is kind of choking up on you because you really want it tight and you feel like it's pulling at the front, you can put a little stitch at the front to keep that in place so it's not choking up on your neck. Now I've gone ahead and sewn my pieces right sides facing. I would actually leave a little bit more than I cut. Leave an inch on the edges. I think I only left about maybe 0.75, so not too far off, but leave a little bit more than I did so you have some leeway if you want to change it or adjust it. But cut off the excess at those edges. And now I'm just gonna zigzag stitch these so that we don't have that fraying or seam allowance. So I've gone ahead and I've zigzag stitched those. I'm gonna cut off any threads that are still there. And then once I do that, I'm going to give this a press so that it's nice and flat at the back of the neck. And again, this is still the inside of the back of the neck. So once I give that a press, I'm gonna take this over to my sewing machine once more, and I'm just gonna sew down those edges to each side. I've gone ahead and done that here. You can see these are sewn down and secure. The back looks nice and neat. We've zigzag stitched those edges so we don't have any loose threads coming out. And this is what your top should look like. Again, you can always do a little stay stitch at that neck part if you feel like it's pulling up. This is completely adjustable, sit in the back and the front, so you should be good on the fit. I hope you guys love this. I hope it snatches your waist and makes you look super hot. I love this pattern. I love this corset. Thank you guys so much. Make sure you follow along for new pattern releases.